Many people fail at building discipline. And it's not because they're weak or because they're lazy, but I think it's because they try to change too much too fast. They try to change everything. So I want to share a little something with you about what's been working for me. We'll see if it can help you out. So I've spent a lot of time trying to bring new habits into my life. And oftentimes what I would do is I would just make huge shifts in my life. And I could be motivated and I could try to make these changes, and many of them would stick for a period of time. Most things didn't. And what ended up happening was is I didn't really build any good disciplines. Let's say, for example, I'm talking about your diet. For me, I've tried quite a few diets, and I often blamed the diet itself for being the reason I couldn't stick to it. And the thing I would do is I would go and do a plant-based diet where only thing I ate were whole plants, and I might cook them, but no oil. I got to do some chopping, got to do some peeling, got to learn about what vegetables are what, just real complex things that I never did before. So it was like a whole transition. Same when that failed. Later on, I went carnivore. And obviously, I don't need to learn a lot about meat. Like I know, what steak I like and what ground beef and all that stuff like that. But it's just such a drastic change from everything I've ever done before that it's really hard to build into my life. Every time I go out, I'm that guy. And I did it for quite a while. I think I did it consistently for about 6 months. But 6 months isn't lifelong. That's not something you can do forever. And one of the issues is I was black and white. So it's like if I wasn't doing it, then I felt like a failure. And because there were so many rules and when I say rules, it wasn't like there's so many things to do, it's so many things to avoid. Like I couldn't eat an apple. That's pretty strict. So, anyways, the change was drastic and it was all encompassing and it was all at once. And I feel like that's part of the issue. That kind of sets people up for failure whenever they have to make such big changes. Sometimes it's really good for people. For me, it's not. I thought it was, and really what happens is I'm running on motivation. I'm not really running on systems and trying to build it as a habit. I'm more so running on just motivation, determination. I'm white knuckling things all the way through, and I'm not making real significant change in my daily habits. So as I've reflected on habits that I've been able to work into my life and stay consistent with, I see the ones that have actually stuck, and most of them start small. And actually, they stay small, but I can build on top of them. Things like now, I did recently just make a first draft of a book, and the main premise is talking about brushing your teeth. And when I was a kid, I was not encouraged to brush my teeth very much. My parents didn't have a lot of standards, so I grew up very poor and in a in an interesting lifestyle growing up. And so the habit of brushing my teeth and showering and all that stuff like that was never really built. And I had to do that as an adult. But something so simple as just brushing your teeth and making that the goal, and like that a very small thing, and making that a new habit, that's the kind of like small incremental things that I'm talking about. In the last video I did, I talked about like doing the bare minimum and not giving up just because you missed something. And this video, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but I do think making small goals and making small habit commitments actually makes a difference on whether or not you feel like you failed. When you have a really far drop from what you commit to what you are are actually doing or not doing, I think that distance actually creates less guilt if you have a very small commitment and more guilt when you have a big commitment. But doing small things and then building on top of them. So, for example, brushing your teeth. Let's say brushing my teeth was the only hygienic thing that I was doing, which it wasn't. But let's say I did the brushing my teeth. Now I can say every time I brush my teeth, I add in the showers or whatever. So then I got showers. Then I also got shaving. Then I also got all these other things, and they kind of just build on top of each other. And so the whole thing is a really big picture of I just want to get better at personal hygiene. Well, as I start getting better at each individual thing, then it all becomes this big shift that happens. But instead of doing it all at one time, you start small and you build on top of it to kind of create this compounding interest effect. Similarly, I've done that with content creation. I first started actually just accumulating gear to make content, and I wasn't actually making content. Then I decided I'm just going to do 30 days. I'm going to do a video every single day for 30 days. And it was a commitment, but it got me to break through the barrier of being self conscious on the camera. But eventually I stopped doing that. And then I also didn't have the habit of doing things more regularly. So then I fell out of the habit. So then, not too long ago, probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I said I was going to start waking up early so that I could do something. And I kind of fell into the habit of doing articles rather than videos, but I still want to do videos. So I said, okay, I'll do one video a week and keep that commitment. And so far, it's been a few months and I've been able to keep the one video a week. But on top of that, I've also been doing all these blog posts. It's interesting because I didn't actually commit to saying I would do a blog post every day or every other day. I just said, I want to get up and be productive, and I'm going to make one YouTube video a week. And what am I going to do to fill my time after that? So things just kind of snowball and create a bigger effect. I still have the one video a week goal right now. I think I'll probably pick it up in a little bit because I feel like it's an easy goal right now. I've kind of gotten into this stride of doing it. And the writing has been getting a bit more consistent, but I've built up a decent library now. I feel like I can kind of pull back a little bit and be a little bit more consistent and not so sprinty right now. So yeah, the idea is just to kind of build a little thing and then start piling stuff on top of it as you get your footing underneath you on those most basic levels of commitments. So if that was you and maybe you hadn't ever made any content before, but you want to start, I'd probably commit to doing some research and learning how to make content. And then once you kind of got the idea of what you want to do, I would say I'm going to make one piece of content a week or something like that, just to say you're doing it. And then 6 months later, you say, I'm going to make two a week. And now you just doubled your output, but you know you can do one. And I'm kind of being long-winded about this, but the idea is to say, just start small. And when you start building up this momentum of learning that you got these little small wins, like, yes, I wrote an article this week, it gets you motivated and it actually makes you want to go do it again, like really quickly before your deadline for next week. So then maybe my wife, she does this. She likes to write in like sprints, but she won't post the article, but once a week. So that it gives her a little bit more runway room in case she does have to miss a week of writing or something like that. So you can build up an inventory that way. Anyways, this video is not about content creation, but I am talking about it. the the point is small wins build up this momentum and sense of confidence that you can even do more. And since you work in those small commitments throughout the crevices of your life, they're easier to work in. They're making these big changes that kind of you have to push parts of your life aside to make the big changes. Whereas in the small things, you can just fit it into the crevices. Yeah. Alongside of building the momentum to keep on going, you're also building a sense of self-confidence and trust in yourself. When you can keep doing the thing that you're committing to doing, it's like a sense of integrity and accomplishment, even if it's something small, the fact that you were able to keep a promise to yourself, it kind of builds up your pride and your the trust that you have that you're able to do the things you commit to. And as you build up the momentum and the trust and the confidence, it all really does start to pile up. And then you start thinking a bit more ambitiously and you actually feel the confidence. And as you start to take on bigger projects or bigger ideas, uh, you'll see how big is too big and how small is really not big enough. And as you work that muscle of us trying out the small goals and tasks, you'll start to realize what's within your range. When I first started, talking about just brushing your teeth, it was a small goal. Brush your teeth every day. It's a small goal. But when I transitioned more recently into a bigger goal, it was to wake up 2 hours earlier than I was, and that was a bit more challenging. But I was able to make the transition because I had worked out that discipline and commitment goal and muscle to be able to take on bigger, more ambitious types of tasks. So a couple of tips or tricks that I use is one, tracking. Not everything can be tracked. I mean, you could have a checklist and say, "Yep, I did it today," and stuff like that. That's fine. For my diet, I track things on my Fitness Pal app. It's pretty good, but after I've done it for so long, I start to know roughly what I can eat, so I don't have to do it every single day all the time. But I have tracking apps like that. There's another tip that I think is just like a unique thing for certain minds. Like I don't know if I have ADHD or not, but I tend to claim it sometimes. And one of the things that I know for me that helps me in a lot of ways is clutter, which is weird because my wife, I'll leave things out in certain places and certain positions so that I can remember something or so that I remember where it's at or that I, don't forget something. But my wife, she likes to go around and clean up all the clutter that I set up, which annoys me because then I forget about the thing I'm trying to remember. But an example of how this worked for me because I ended up getting the habit of brushing my teeth before I got married. But I would leave the toothbrush right there on the counter, right hanging over the sink, so that every time I went to get ready for the day, whatever I was doing, whether it was getting ready for the night or the day in the morning or whatever, the toothbrush was sitting right there on the sink counter. I could not miss it. So it was a reminder to me. So I like to leave things out as kind of reminders. Some people, they might have like a picture to like motivate them, or they might have a checklist on the refrigerator to remind them to put something on the grocery list. Whatever this new habit or system is that you're trying to put in place, I like to keep things visual, and so that I have visual reminders all over the place. For me, the clutter to me is pretty organized. I know like this piece of paper is next to this piece of paper, which is underneath this folder or something. Like it all makes sense to me in my mind. But my wife, it drives her crazy. So there's only certain places that I can have the organized chaos that I enjoy so much. Outside of that, my wife rules the house and she controls all that. So take that for what it's worth. I think if you can find a system to help remind you of things, that'll go a long way. Look, I'm 40 years old and I haven't been able to get all the habits that I committed to under my belt yet. And I got a lot more I want to do. And the truth is I failed a lot and I'm going to keep failing, but I'm going to keep showing up. And that's what I think is the difference between the people that get good and become successful versus the people that don't and they settle and they don't feel successful. You have to keep getting up, and you have to commit. You have to keep pushing forward and trying. The Bible says Someone who's able to be trusted with very little can be trusted with very much. And the opposite is true. If you can't be trusted with little, you can't be trusted with very much. They taught us that in the military, responsibility. They would teach us and tell us exactly how they wanted us to tie our shoes. And then they would inspect our shoes. And if our laces weren't in the exact order that they told us to place the laces, then how are they ever going to trust me with a gun or with leading a team? They start small and then build up from there. So I just want to encourage you, keep going, start small. If you fail, pick yourself back up and try again. So it's a never ending progress. I mean, you just keep trying over and over again. Anyways, I've been making a lot of content about this specifically on the website. You can go check out. I'm going to leave some resources in the description of this video. One of the things is a free little devotional that you can check out. It's the 31-day discipline devotional, and it's free. Check that out. And I also want to encourage you to watch another one of these videos because YouTube says you're going to like this one over here. So check that one out. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.